Lorna Hollinger, thank you for joining me here today on our little chat that we're going to have today on our dark night of the soul, on your hero's journey, that big initiation really that you undertook. How many years ago did you slay that dragon?
Slay that dragon. Hey,
how many dragons have you slayed?
Firstly, it's great to see you, and I'm just having that while you're thinking, going, so which dragon exactly do we want to talk about?
I know. It feels like once you do, look, I think you can call on any part of your life that you felt was the call to action when you were living your life and you started questioning your own inner happiness, your soul purpose. Is there a bigger why outside of you that you started questioning? For what purpose am I putting up with this? Should I shrink myself to keep other people happy? How does this play out for you? So the call to action, what was your first call to action to get you to leave the old world behind, if you like, the safe world where you probably didn't even question your status quo? You just went along with it because that's what we all think that's what we need to do in the name of family very often, isn't it? To keep up with the Joneses or the prototypes that are being told a perfect family should look like.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then we start questioning that.
Yeah.
And our world begins to fall apart.
It does. So the very first dark night of the soul for me, upon reflection, I didn't know what it was terrifying. Absolutely terrifying for me because I had no idea what was happening. And that was, as you were saying, about in and around family. So that was my first divorce. So it was really, I sat on the steps at my house and I said to a girlfriend on the phone, if I don't do something and get out of here, I'm going to die. I am dying on the inside and I need to leave him. And she was just like, I can't even have this conversation with you. But I just knew I had to leave that relationship. And so, which I did. I then remarried, probably a good, 5-6 years later. It must have been longer. 8 years later, I had remarried. And so that was probably the more pivotal relationship because it started me on the journey to where I am now in terms of where my business is and what I'm creating and what I'm developing. So that dark night of the soul was different. And I put that, so I wrote about that in my book. I know we're going to talk about my book later, but part of that was I was not financially dependent on this person, so my safety and security were not threatened as part of the divorce and the separation. My children were older, so it was very, very different. But what was noticeable in that relationship was the pinnacle of I had decided that it wasn't functioning and wasn't working for me, but I then wanted different and better and understood more about this isn't what my life wants to be about. The first one was just about escaping a world that just wasn't serving me, and I was so miserably unhappy, drinking too much alcohol. I'd done the whole pills, I'd done the antidepressants, all that stuff. Yet this second one was very much, I want more, I can have more, this isn't serving, so what do I do about it from here? A more conscious decision of stepping forward rather than running away from when it wasn't working. Very, very different in my head. And
how did you navigate? Okay.
The second one or the first one?
Well, you wouldn't have got to the second one if you didn't get through the first one.
Correct.
So I think it's important because you started to question why, and you were dumbing down or numbing yourself with trying to get happiness from outside sources. And
totally.
And in another podcast, we did talk briefly about this. So it's a perfect segue forward, I think, because you're running away from something that's not serving you, but you're going towards something that's even a bigger monster to even have to deal with. And I think that can be a real challenge for a lot of people. Would you like to share just briefly a little bit about that journey before we move forward?
Sure. So between the husbands, though, I didn't really do a whole lot of work. So I ended up coming out of the first relationship really.
And that's a good point. I think you've hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
You took the problems from the first relationship into the second relationship.
Completely.
So if we don't heal trauma from an unresolved and unhealed relationship, we do continue that pattern like a hamster on a wheel.
Yeah.
Okay. So
and I believe I got married the second time for the wrong reasons, unfortunately for him, because I wasn't healed. I thought there was something wrong with me. I thought as a woman I had to have a partner. If you didn't have a partner and you were single, there was something wrong. My ex-husband had instantly got into a new relationship. I mean, it was set up before we split. So for me, it was this whole, well, there's something wrong with me. And I met this man who was lovely, but the warning signs were there so early. I just ignored them because
you ignored them because they didn't suit your agenda at the time. You weren't ready to deal with it.
Absolutely. So it wasn't until I was in the second marriage, started to look at, well, what could I do with my life that's different? The kids are getting older, and started heading into that coaching space, that healing space, that, okay, how can I help others space, that the cracks really, really started to show.
How did you navigate through those cracks? What were your coping mechanisms at that time?
Thankfully, at that point in time, I was already coached, so I already had people in the industry who I was already connected to. It also helped me so as you know, I own the Australian Tapping Institute. The creation of the Tapping Institute came about because as my marriage started to crumble around me, I wanted an EFT practitioner to work with to help me through it. I didn't just want to counsel, I didn't want to coach. I was specific of I wanted to look for an EFT practitioner because I already was one, but you can't work on yourself deeply on that stuff.
You can't work on yourself. And I think that's actually a really powerful statement that you've just made then, because a lot of people that are healers and doctors, you know, the medical and the alternative therapies, they all think that we've got the answers. We're working in this field, that we can do our own work, but that can become part of the trap, can't it?
It can, because you can do your own work to a certain part, but you and I both know we're in this space that the human brain will allow you to go so far, and then it's like, oh man, this is too scary. We're not going here. Suddenly that cup of tea becomes important. Let me look at my phone. Everything else becomes more important than actually sitting down dealing, because it's scary stuff. The brain's packed it away. So for me, it was who do I then go and find? So I found another EFT practitioner. She was very, very skilled. I worked with her and specifically would go to her but for my healing. I had used a counsellor in my first divorce, and that was more frustration for me, because we just talked about the same stuff every month, every week. And I got
talking therapy really doesn't work, does it?
Because I just got angrier.
So
for this one, it was like, no, I know better and I want better. And it was an EFT practitioner was the answer for me. And being aware, I was already aware. I'd already started on the coaching journey. And that was another part for me. I had no idea being a life coach, as it was at the diploma, was so much about me. I went in to help other people. I was so naive of how much of my own work it was important to do to help other people. Because you and I both know, if you don't do your own work, you can't go
mirror on the wall.
You cannot take people deep into their trauma, their own healing, their stuff, unless you've done yours.
That's right.
You just don't.
That's right.
So
you know, it's interesting. That's a really powerful, you know, message that you just put out then, that, you know, whoever sits in front of you, your clients, your students, now that you're the Australian Tapping Institute, and you're one of the biggest, you know, institutes of EFT in Australia, and even up there now in the world, that you're becoming really highly recognized, Lorna. So honor and kudos to you, and for you to recognize that you needed help and that you had the power within yourself to say help. And I think every healer needs a healer. Every healer needs a body of healers or a support system. We can't do our own work on our own. And I think that's a massive, powerful energy to put out there. So I'm going to go back, because your weakness before was actually numbing down the pain. At any point during this process, before you reached out to another practitioner, because we can have the fear or the shame, can't we? We wear the masks.
Shame.
And, oh my God, this is not happening to me. I should know better, that we should be bigger than this or brighter than this, that this is what I do. And now I'm faced with my own demons and the work that I'm doing. I'm now being challenged to actually come to a higher level myself. Did you at any point get tempted to go back to any of the old escapism techniques, you know?
I think we do.
Numbing it down.
Certainly not the alcohol and any of that sort of stuff. I definitely moved through that. But you talk about, the shame of I'm a healer, I'm a coach, I'm a whatever.
And that's a real problem, I think, for a lot of people. We have to own our own stuff.
Because I found myself towards the end of my second marriage, I found myself, I was in an abusive relationship.
Yeah.
I was in a relationship.
You get yourself into that when you work with clients that are, massive, powerful.
Exactly it, Elizabeth.
And this is slaying the dragon. This is raw, wild, and real. Can you talk us through how you navigated that part of your life? I think that's really important, because
it was huge.
But the first signs, when you started questioning and you recognized that it was early in the piece that you probably shouldn't be in this situation, what made you stay in it longer than you probably should have?
What made me even get into it was pride pride and ego. He and I had fought so hard to be together. He lived in another country, I lived here. We fought courts on both continents so I could go there to live for a year, and then he was coming back here.
And what continent was he from?
He was from the UK.
Okay.
So he was from Northern Ireland. So it was a great adventure. We went there, but it was a real, I dug my heels in enough that we were going to do this. We were going to make this work. And I believed I could make anything work.
Oh, wow. Be careful what you ask for.
I know. And unfortunately, he came here. He couldn't find his happy place within himself. He didn't do his own work, and he had a lot of trauma, former military and all the rest of it. So his coping mechanism was alcohol. Exactly. And alcohol in a family, it didn't work. And it would just, I said, it ended up just being really, really abusive.
It really can become a nasty place.
It was horrible. It really, really was. And when I recognized that I'd hit rock bottom, one of my sons was still living at home, and my husband at the time came home, and it was abusing me. He was just shouting at me and swearing at me and just really threatening to throw me out of the house. It was just horrible. And my youngest son, I don't even know how old he was, went and wrote him a letter that said, "Thank you for teaching me how to treat my wife. Thank you for teaching me how."
How old was your son at the time when
he was a teenager? He was a late teen. He may have been, I'm trying to think, he may have been 16, 17, no, maybe he was working, he might have been 18, 19.
Wow.
I know, it was really
what a powerful lesson for someone, for a young man growing up.
And look, and he was always being very, very sarcastic, but he was his message to this man was very pointed.
Very much so.
I'm standing here listening to you abusing my mother and saying you love her, but treating her so appallingly.
Yeah.
And that for me was the big smack, because he emailed it to him and he printed it and left it on the kitchen bench, and I read it and thought, what the are you doing?
Wow.
What are you doing?
Wow.
So it must be about 2015. Massive. I think he might have been about 20 if I'm doing the maths. He was probably about 20 this late.
Still a young man, growing
Still
up,
a young man,
with his whole life in front of him, and he had the emotional maturity to take that action. Kudos to him. 10 points.
It was absolutely huge point. It was a massive turning point for me to go.
An awareness to you.
Sitting and learning and seeing, and he didn't even know about the other abuse and stuff, and the when he came home drunk and having to have sex with him, because he was just. It was the only way to get him to bed and to stop abusing the kids and to stop being an absolute pig to everybody. That was my coping mechanism. And the shame and the embarrassment around having to, not only did I write about it in my book, I then had to tell my kids, because they would read my book. So that was massive.
And that's a massive. How did you navigate that, Lorna? By telling your kids?
Basically, we've always had a really, really tight relationship. So I've got two sons. The relationship with them has always been really tight. So it was just a sit down and be honest and vulnerable with them and tell them. Exactly, tell them. And I've always come from a place of, I need you to see me as a woman, not just mum. I need you to hear that I'm a woman in another space as well. So it was just being honest with them. And I think it was probably easier for them because it wasn't their dad. If it had been their dad, it may have been harder for them to hear, but they already weren't through them and didn't love
attachment. They were a bit more
exactly, Elizabeth. Exactly. So they were just that little bit more separate from that.
Fantastic.
But I had to deal with a lot of shame and guilt. And as you said earlier, I'm a coach, I'm a healer, I'm helping other people, and here I am in this
and your
really
own world was falling apart.
And abusive as well, having allowed it to get to that stage that it had just become and I'd been putting up with it for a couple of years. Till I called quits. So it was
now big. You're working full time in your own business. You've taken that leap of faith.
I have, and
tell us about that story. How because you were working previously with an employee you were
corporate.
employed, and then
Yep.
for you to believe so much in yourself, and that was occurring at around the same time, so you fell together rather than fell apart. And
I did.
Did the EFT help you fall together rather than, collapse and fall apart? Was
Still
that
does
part
to
of
this
that?
day. Still does to this day. I still do tapping to this day. There is not many days that go past that I don't do tapping on something. And it may just be a little trigger. It may just be a conversation. And it may just be a little bit of a walk around and, yeah, no, I'm all good now, versus sit down and actually do tapping as a conscious, not, what's the word? As a conscious activity might be the best way to put it. Yeah.
I might get you, before we finish at the end, to take us through a small tapping demonstration to show people what it actually is. Yeah. So what is emotional freedom technique? Is that what it's short for, the EFT?
Correct. That's its full name, emotional freedom technique. It's been around since the 80s. It's probably, if I give you a quick example of what it is, imagine a dog barks at you when you're 3, or a dog comes up and licks you when you're 3, and then when you're 6, another dog comes up and it takes your ice cream. And then by the age of 11, your friend's got a big dog and it barks. Imagine your brain sticks all of these little memories into a little recipe card box. So you get to an adult age and you think, oh, there's a dog coming, and you're scared of it, but you don't know why. It's because your brain's got this little memory card box of going, remember all those things that dog did to us? That's all scary stuff. Yeah. So when we do tapping and we think of all those things that happened with the dog, it rewires the brain and it sends messages back to the amygdala in the brain, the fight or flight response, to say, this is fine, this is safe. We're actually okay with this now. It's no longer
So it helps you integrate it and process it and shift it through.
Absolutely. Yes, it's exactly right. It shifts it and processes it, rather than, as we talked about talk therapy,
locking it down.
That just keeps re-traumatizing it. Actually, so it's on the meridian points, it's on the acupuncture points of the body. So it's the same points we use for that. And it's just a physical activation. It's just the two together. We talk about the negative stuff, we release it. We talk about it, we release it, just by the activation on the actual
body. And is that ownership, do you think, the ownership, owning the trauma, is that part of the healing process? So we're not locking it down, we're not numbing it, we're not sweeping it under the mat, we're actually owning the trauma. Yeah,
and voicing it and verbalizing and giving a voice to it.
Giving a name to it.
Yeah, and while being able to process it.
Fantastic.
Just it coming up. But you're right about, we numb, because we talk, cigarettes, alcohol, drugs, gaming, gambling, all those things, pornography, all those things where we try to escape what our real thoughts are. Yeah. Doing the tapping on these thoughts actually processes them so that you don't have to escape them anymore. Yeah. You have to run away.
That's right. And even as you even say that, a runaway, you see people, at the gym or really physically fit or running, jogging. And we now question, are they running away from their problems, or are they running towards wellness and fitness? Yeah. And they're two different mindsets, aren't they?
Absolutely they are. I mean, you and I know the pain or pleasure model. Are you running away from the pain of what you don't want, or is there pleasure in what the outcome will be for you?
And it may appear to be a constructive, way of dealing with it on the outside, but what you could still be doing is locking it into your cellular biology.
Yeah, I worked with a girl and she was an absolute gym junkie, gorgeous body, all the rest of it. Yeah. Little head was messed up and she smoked. And I go, that's so not congruent. But that was her escape. That was her exercise was almost her punishment for what she was doing to her body with the cigarettes and the stuff she was drinking. And it was really interesting to be able to help her unpack that. Yeah. Because the gym was
and
so
create awareness to it, and then for her to own it, for her to accept it.
Yeah. And then she can do something about it and change, because it's not serving.
And then she takes the right action to bring a positive transformation to herself. So how do you feel now when your clients come and you can see the mirror presenting in front of you? What are your coping mechanisms in dealing with that?
So I have 2 mechanisms in place. A, I do my tapping still, but B, I have a debrief place. So I have someone that I go to.
Someone outside of you, a support
someone network. Outside of, absolutely, yes. Somebody that's in my network that I can kind of have that, what do they call it, sort of, what do they call it in counselling, where you have that person who's the supervisor, not the supervisor, but,
the mentor?
that sort of thing where you can go and go, right, I need to talk this through. I just need to process this and have a conversation. Because I actually do a lot of work with people in trauma who people have been through abuse. So I volunteer for a charity, and as part of that volunteering is I work with usually the parents of the children who've been abused or sexually abused and stuff. So when that sort of comes up, other people work with the parent, the child itself. I tend to work with the parents. So there's tends to be this need to have a bit of a debrief of, this is going on and this is what they shared with me. Very
because
insightful.
The apple may not fall far from the tree, and
it never has yet. It's always
100%.
been how long before this parent.
And where did this come from? How is it being processed? And how is it being handled? Because one person's trauma in a family actually does affect the whole family.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think we need to own that, we're not just treating the person that is so-called the victim, because they may be able to shift their trauma because they're associating into it. They can have the awareness, they can bring healing to that, but it can leave the scars or the traumas on everybody else that may feel guilty or responsible or traumatized as a result of that.
Yeah, that's what I get from the parents.
How do you do your own self-care to navigate that?
Journaling, a tap, and so I'm always doing tapping. That's always my go-to thing, is always going to be tapping and the debrief with my mentor. Of something, if it's like, this is kind of affecting me, this is kind of bugging me, work it through. And I'm always in a space of doing, because I as I said, had an abusive relationship, so there is an element of I'm still processing my own sexual trauma.
Why do you think people get into and allow themselves to for one, two questions here, I suppose, at the same time, because I can't ever ask one question at a time. One question first. Why do you think people get into abusive relationships?
For me, it wasn't abusive when I got into it. It became abusive. So
how soon into that relationship did you identify?
Yeah, I knew he was cross and cranky to start with, but I had rose-colored glasses on. Once we get back to Australia and me and the kids are in our normal routine, everything will be fine. He'll get into his routine and we'll all just live as a happy family and it will all be fine. And look, lots and lots of times it was fine. It was really lovely. We had a lot of fun and we had a great time. But then the bad stuff just was so over masking that it was like, not that there was more bad than good, but why would I put up with the bad to enjoy the good?
Can we change that terminology from bad to negative?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the negative, because if we look at it, instead of having bad and good, I think they're labels that can
sometimes the labels I had.
Change things around, and they're not necessarily a positive way of shifting an energy.
Correct.
So, because I think if we look at the holistic and the yin and the yang, the negative and the positive, the dark and the light, the night and the dark, we know that there's a duality with everything that we have. And so if we stay away from labels of judgment, which is good and bad, because I think marketing companies have exploited our good and bad to be able to really capitalize on that so that we get happiness from outside sources. If we buy this, we'll be happy. If we get engaged and get the big ring, we'll be happy. If we get married and have the fancy wedding and overseas or, in a fancy location, we'll be happy. And then when we have our first child, we'll be happy. And when we have our second child, we'll be even happier. Oh my God, the world starts getting hard. And so we need a bigger car, and then we need a bigger house, and we'll be happy when we get that. And we need a new lounge or a new back or a swimming pool. So this constant need for something outside of us needs to be replaced by finding that internal space inside of us. Did you notice that you went on that journey of happiness outside of you yourself?
Absolutely.
Can you share that part of your journey with us on how you recognized the pattern and how you stepped away from that pattern?
So when I think back to my early years, they were almost on autopilot. I was so oblivious to everything. And when I think back, and I wrote about my book and the cathartic part of that is when he and I separated the first one, I was such a victim. He had done all this to me, and he'd done all that, and it was all his fault, and everything was just how hard done by I was. And it took a lot of healing and a lot of processing and a lot of years for me to finally get to the stage to go, you know what? We were kids when we got together. We were so young. Yeah. We had no family to support us. It was just him and I. So realistically, we really absolutely struggled to support each other. So when you see all of that sort of rolling out, it's like, no wonder we didn't really.
And you didn't really have the emotional skills to deal with it at that point.
None. I didn't get that until I was lots older. As I said, I went through coaching. So starting to go through the coaching space and go, oh, I actually have things wrong with me, or I actually have things I'd like to I have to work on. And then working out that there were things I wanted to work on and I wanted to process. It became even different again. But it was well into my 40s, probably heading to my 50s before I really got that, I need to do the inner work. The outer work is nothing. Blaming everyone else is nothing. I have to bring it inside and go.
And how did you navigate that chapter of your story? How did you navigate that for yourself?
Oh, with great difficulty. And you talk about the dark night of the soul. I remember a couple of them through that. Where was the difference from the very first one? By the time I got to the second, third, fourth one, I remember ringing a girlfriend and just saying, I know I'm going to a really dark place. Just keep an eye on me. I don't know what it's going to look like, but just keep an eye on me.
Wow.
Because I knew I had to go there, and I knew no one could really help me go there.
No one could do it for you.
Absolutely.
And you already knew the pitfalls and the traps of what you had been through before with alcohol or drugs or medication or anything to numb it down. So this time,
and I wasn't prepared to go to medication either.
Around you.
Yeah, it was not having antidepressants of any description. I wasn't having any medication. It was that from a space of awareness.
Okay.
And reaching out, being prepared to reach out. Because by the time I got these bit older, I knew I had a support network. Whereas when I was younger, I felt so alone. My mum had died when I was 18. My dad had pretty well moved in with his girlfriend. Not all that, maybe a year or so later. There was me and a brother, and we have no family in Australia. It's just us. So there was none of this support for a young woman to navigate anything. So it wasn't until I got older and then started to surround myself with women who, I suppose it was women who cared, but it was also letting people in. Because I had trust issues. I think that's a massive,
what you've just hit then you've hit the nail on the head, I think. Because I think when we haven't had a deep emotional connection with our family as a child or a teenager growing up, we tend to become a little bit closed emotionally to shut people out and become over independent.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm incredibly independent.
To a fault. We can actually we don't allow that vulnerability in, because that might make us look like shame or not enough, which stirs up low self-worth, because of that's how we felt we were responsible, or there must have been something wrong with us because it's happening again and again and again. This cycle of sabotage repeats. Can you share that little part, that segue forward with us?
Which part?
Because I think that's a massive shift of consciousness that you've just said.
Yeah, from being the victim and then
being too independent.
Too independent. I'm probably still very independent. I'm a single woman, and I happily run my single life. So probably I'm. And
you probably won't want to give that up, but now you can still reach out for help and you can ask for support. So they're two different mindsets now, aren't they?
Absolutely. And what I do consciously is, because a single woman, I do go on do dating from time to time and all the rest of it. I consciously go in my feminine. I do a very conscious thing to go, right, I'm going on this date with this man. If I step back and not be in my masculine, because, business owners, we're very in our masculine, you're thinking, you're processing, you're making decisions, all that. I would consciously go, be the female, be the feminine. Allow.
And what does that look like for you?
For me, it's silly little things like I want him to order my meal at the table.
Oh, damn right. If I don't.
I can see your
I can order my own.
And that's what I'm saying. It's those little things of, if he says, what would you like? I think, I'm going to have this. And he goes to the waiter, she'll have this. Partly for me is that I'm not the mum.
Yeah.
Because it really, I was in a marriage where I had to drive everywhere, I had to do everything, I had to speak to everyone. So for me, they're little. If he just says, what are you having? And he'll order, great. What are you having to drink? Prosecco, great. We'll have one of this and a Prosecco.
Beautiful.
And to me, that's allowing me to be in my feminine and not have to make the decisions. And it's those little things that get brownie points. I don't need him to open the door. I don't need him to do all that. But it literally is those little things of not feeling like the mum. Walk into a restaurant, he goes table for two. Those little things just as an incredible brownie points for me. If any man's listening who's going to be dating me.
If anyone taking notes here.
And I also go dancing. So I go to a male-led dancing, which is like a rock and roll type thing. Again, relax into my feminine and allow the masculine to lead.
Wow.
And they have the conscious decisions to go, I need to stop being so in my masculine. I raise kids on my own, run a business on my own, run a house on my own. All those things aren't necessarily done from the feminine.
Fixed, you fix it.
Totally. I've got all my own toolkit and I know exactly how to use everything. Like I lay flooring, I renovate room, I can do everything. So knowing that I needed to make the choice to be.
It is choice, isn't it?
It was for me to know I need to go back to my feminine. I can't always be my masculine. And that part of his.
But that actually is stepping into being the divine feminine, because then you allow the man to become the divine masculine.
Correct.
And I think that's a powerful energy shift of consciousness, isn't it?
And that was that's what's helped me to stop being so incredibly independent.
And you wouldn't allow anyone to dominate you again, though, because you would recognize it earlier. Even though you're allowing your feminine, you're a divine feminine, which is very powerful.
Correct.
In the way you're now like traveling that divine feminine journey.
Correct. And you can see the wounded masculine still who hasn't done the work.
Oh, and
how much as I love
what are the signs of the wounded masculine that hasn't done the work? What do you need to look for next time? What do you see?
What do I need to look for? Not taking ownership for his own stuff. Very much the victim language.
Yeah. And what does that sound like for people that don't really know? Like once you spell it out to them, they may go, "Oh my God, I've heard that before," but we don't know what we don't know. Yeah.
If I'm out with someone and he's whinging about his day at the office and it's just a total, oh, they did this to me and they did that to me, that's just like a red flag to me. It's like, dude, you have a part in all of this. So those sorts of simple little language things make the difference to me. And I said it's very much the playing the victim. He or she did something to me. Certainly not having healed from their past relationship. That's a big one for me.
And you recognize that because you didn't. So that would be a mirror on the wall for you.
Very, very much so. Yeah, very, very much so. Being able to have an intellectual conversation, not just the playful goofhead conversation. I want the intellectual one.
So you may be divine feminine with intelligence at the same time. And that makes it even more divine, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I'm very much more centered and grounded in who I am these days, what I want. Believe the universe is going to deliver it to me because she's delivered everything else to me. Why wouldn't she deliver this one?
That's right. I like that.
And just trusting.
Yeah.
But and also the intuition stuff. The intuition, when it doesn't feel right or doesn't seem right, I listen to myself now. I don't go, oh no, it'll be fine. It'll all work out. You know, when we get back to Australia, it'll all be good. It's like something feels off.
Yeah.
Honor that and own that and go, something feels off. What is it? Not that I have to hunt down what he's saying or it's wrong. It's that sit with yourself and own it for yourself of how does this actually feel? Because I used to be so busy and I would just, as I said, I went for years thinking I was damaged and needed a man. No. It's a different
and I think that's owning it, isn't it? And having awareness and accepting it, like we said earlier, it's a powerful place to be. Then you can bring the right action, the divine action towards you, rather than focusing on what you don't want as the victim and putting more power towards what you don't want. You're actually holding yourself in a central place, being like that dot, that still point in the circle with, you know, your boundaries around you, aligned to your values, and you communicate and focus what you want to bring towards you. How did that change your movie? And you're the lead actress in this movie and everyone else is now the cast and crew. How did that change your movie as you began slaying the dragon?
It was. It gave me the power to make choices that once upon a time I didn't. And I was just share with you, I don't know what your upbringing was, but mine was very much about keep the man happy, keep your dad happy and your brother happy, and keep all the men happy. So there was an element of handing over your power because you don't want to upset them and you don't want to speak your truth because of it. Whereas that's not the case anymore. It is really, no, this isn't working for me in this manner anymore. I'm not sticking around. Versus, oh, okay, then if that's what you want to do, there's no more of that. And I don't mean from a hard ass, it's just an owning who I am and recognizing that I'm important and what I want is important and my needs are important and they need to be met.
And what do you do if they're not met?
Have the conversation and explain to the person that they're not being met.
And how do you do that?
Gently, kindly, and directly. And then I know if he's not prepared to have the conversation, he's probably not the person who needs to remain in my life.
Oh,
and
so
gently and kindly,
aligning it to your highest values.
Absolutely, yeah. If it's not,
so you really have to know yourself, your values, have boundaries, and be able to communicate in a positive way of what you choose to bring towards you. And if they choose not to hear you or choose not to see you or blame you as if it's your fault.
Yeah, well, you and I have both been
breathe
there.
into that.
Yeah.
Oh, breathe into that one and tap on that one.
And it's the
as we tap on our high heart, and I love you, but I love me more. We're not going to give our power away to anyone to use against us. Doesn't matter how much we love them. Yeah. And our family can sometimes be our biggest challenges as well. Have you found that in your life?
Not so much my family, and I think because my family is so small, they just aren't enough of us to fight and argue. Because there is only myself and a brother in Australia. My dad remarried, and I have a beautiful stepmom and a sister, a stepsister now. So there's just not enough of us to fight and argue. And
so you appreciate what you do have.
Yeah, and we all get along. We really love each other.
Wow.
We spend time together. And it's just beautiful. But yeah, that's our life is, Like when my father passed over, people go, oh, what's the argument going to be over property? And it's like, well, there isn't an argument over property. It all goes to mum. And if and when mum's time comes up, then the three of us will work it out. But there was this whole, oh, you'll all fight. No, we won't. No, Dad, they've been together for 30 years, this couple. So yeah, it was a really interesting thing. But yeah, we don't fight, we don't argue, we don't have all things out. We're so fortunate.
And how have you navigated that? I mean, that in itself sounds like a miracle, if you want my honest opinion.
The early days with my stepmom, and when my dad, because my mum died when I was very young, I was 18. Dad was with my stepmom within a year. So I lost both parents within a year. Because he was very much, oh, right, well, I've got a new family over here, so if you don't mind, off I go. And we barely saw my dad. He was he was not really.
And you were still grieving.
Absolutely. My mum was gone in 2 weeks. Like, she was the rock of the family, and suddenly she was gone, and he chuffed off as well. So my stepmom didn't have the awareness in herself of what my brother and I were going through. She was just like, well, I've met this man and we're in love and off we go and have our family. So yeah, there was not a lot of awareness on either side.
How did you cope with that at that time when you were so young?
Anger and the alcohol and the escapism, and having been married to someone that I just, look, he and I had a great life before the kids, but as we got older, the trauma just overtook us both.
Yeah,
it really just overtook both of us, and there was just, that's the main thing. My dad was anger, so it was really the big cathartic thing happened. My dad passed over 4 years ago now, and that's when I went, right, let me heal the masculine. That's when my book got written. That's when all of that stuff, to make a massive conscious effort to go, right, let's heal all of this trauma, all of this sexual trauma, all of the abuse stuff. Let's go and actually really focus on that and heal my anger with my dad. Let's just go and get rid of that. So the last 4 years have been really, really big for me. Facing those demons, slaying those dragons, absolutely head on, knowing it's going to hurt like hell.
And no one said it's easy. This is a hard journey to traverse. It's a massive initiation journey, really, isn't it?
It is.
The initiation of our soul contract, that we signed up for this. And it's massive.
And it's hard to accept that I signed up for this, really?
I know.
But on the other side, it's liberating to go, oh, well, I signed up for this. It'll all work out.
If we own it, we can shift it.
Yeah.
But we do need people outside of us to help us shift it.
I believe so. I mean, my philosophy is we used to live in tribe. In tribe, we had the women who were the elders and the young ones, and the eldest ones helped the younger ones. And we all had this beautiful feminine support system that was completely in place. And certainly in Western cultures these days, we don't. We get married and we leave the family. We go off on our own, and we live in great big houses with 2 kids and 27 rooms, and those connective things are gone.
Yeah, the connection.
So unless we create those circles for ourselves and those women for ourselves, and create lives for ourselves where we connect ourselves to people
and
who
that's
matter.
a powerful point that you're just saying now.
Yeah.
We have to really make sure that we do build our own strong connections and hold those strong connections in a sacred container.
And most of it may not be people who you were born into the same family.
Well,
it's people you
most
find
often they're not, are they?
Yeah, exactly. They are the women or the people, men, women, whoever, that you choose.
That's right.
Choose to do the work with, choose to have the confidence with, choose to be vulnerable with, know you're safe and loved and you can be.
Yeah.
Is probably the biggest gift we can give anybody. Biggest gift we can find for ourselves is to have that.
And even in the last 5 years, like, you've been through a massive journey. The initiation has not stopped in one way, because you didn't deal with it. So you brought the next one towards you, and there was such similarities. You had wisdom, you had age, you had a bit more maturity. So you put a support. But even in the last 5 years, your journey, your initiation, leaving full-time employment and trusting in yourself to set your own business, the Australian Tapping Institute up, writing your book, putting it onto the bookshelves to read in ink and pen and ink, like bearing your soul publicly. What would you say to anyone else going through this journey? What would you say to them?
I would say you need to just trust that you'll survive it, because we all do. Find people who you can connect to, whether they're older, younger, whatever, but find other people to connect to and build those relationships, because they're
invaluable.
And
where do people find those people to connect to? Where do they start?
I'm not sure where other people start. I was fortunate enough to have, because I started my school, I had students come into my school, and so I built them through that, and then I built them through my training that I had done. So it was people who were doing the similar training. It was like, oh, well, they're a bit like-minded.
Yeah.
And then there were some people that came into my school, some women came into my school that were just awesomely amazing. They became the mentors that now work with me with the students in my school.
Fantastic.
And it was putting them together. And then others were a couple of really long-term friends that...
So you're growing with really firm foundations. You're not just making it happen overnight to become the $1 million overnight success. You're taking a steady building, putting the 4 pillars into place to build a firm foundation.
Mine's very, very strategic build. My business is very strategically built, and there's always a piece here and a piece there and a piece there. And we're already looking at, so what's the succession plan look like? What does the escalation plan look like? When you girls get too busy, who's coming in behind you to train as the next? I'm always.
And how many students do you now have in your school?
I hate when people ask me that. I think I'm terrible because they roll over all the time. I think there's about 50 at the moment.
Okay, that's a lot.
There's about 50 at all varying degrees of where they're starting and where they're not. And look, it's really wonderful.
Where do you run your workshops now, your trainings?
We're all 100% online. So we're one of the few EFT trainings that's 100% online. Yeah. All the others still insist on face-to-face. I don't believe we need face-to-face, because the online platform that we've got and the connective community we've got and the way they work together is just amazing.
Fantastic.
Because we do have the conversations. You need to work on yourself. Yeah. You have to do your own work. Yeah. You have to be able to face that. You have to know what will happen to your private relationships and how they may change and fall apart.
Because change does affect every part in our life, doesn't it? Like, it does. And I say to that to my clients, like, unless you're ready to do the deep inner work, when you begin changing, it does change every part of us, doesn't it? It
does.
Like, have you actually had anybody tell you or ask you, Lorna, you've changed. What have you done? You look different.
All the time. All of the time. And I go, oh, you're looking well. Am I? What have you been doing? Oh, I don't know, nothing. I just don't share that I've probably been spent headlong into some training program for the last 6 weeks, or done this, intense tapping training. I have a girlfriend that her and I are always finding a new program and go, right, let's do this program. And it's usually for us clearing money blocks, clearing all of those money blocks. Yeah.
And
we're very, very
and what are
focused
the,
on
what, maybe you could take us through that. Would that be a good idea? Maybe you could take us through to clear money blocks. Would you like to do that?
Sure. So you and I know that money is just energy. It's the thought.
And I think also too, working for yourself, by yourself, really, if we're not doing our own work, it affects every part of our life. So we have to hold ourselves in a steady place, connected to a support group in a safe container, but we have to process it. We have to shift it, don't we? So this is perfect that you're actually going to take us through this. I really value this. Thank you.
So if we think about money blocks, it's never about the money. So we're never just going to be talking on or tapping on the money. What we want to be tapping on is, what is your connection to, say, your debt? I mean, I just did a masterclass the other week, and it was like, so what's your debt tolerance? How much do you owe in debt, and what happens when you look at it? So if you look at how much you owe in debt, what's the reaction in your body? Is it your tummy? Is it your throat? Is it your chest? What is it that happens? So if we look at that, and you want to do an example on that. So if we had someone and you go, right, this is how much you owe in debt, have a look at it. What do I feel? So say my tummy's churning. We would do something like, here on the karate chop or the side of the hand, even though I've got these blocks to money and it's turning over in my stomach, I deeply and completely accept myself. And then again, even though I have these blocks to money, and when I look at my debt, it scares me. My tummy turns over, but I deeply and completely accept myself. And then third time, even though I have these money blocks, I look at my debt and I get panicked. I look at my debt and I feel sick, deeply and completely accept myself. And then you would tap through the points. So the points are up on the top of the head, right up on the crown, here on the eyebrow point, here on the side of the eye. Think of bony bits under the eye, then here in the crease, and here on the collarbone. It's easy enough if you just do that. Yeah. If people do it flat-handed, then they have to worry about.
Do you do it one together or syncopate?
Oh, you can do it whichever. I do it one-handed. I tend to do just the one hand when I tap.
Okay.
Yep.
So you don't have to do it together. You can just however it is. Just
pick on one. Which is your favorite hand? Which is not your favorite hand? Which is most comfortable? Which one are you drawn to? You can't get it wrong, because maybe you're activating the meridians. It's not about the fingers. It's not about the sequence. It's about the conversation while you're tapping on these meridian points.
Okay. So it really is that evidence, isn't it? That physiology shifts our psychology.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. So if it was looking at your money and it's like, every time I look at my credit card statement, I panic, or I freeze, or I feel sick, it would simply be this freeze, this panic. So
you own the word. You identify.
Own the word. Talk about the negative. Yeah. I feel panic when I look at my credit card debt. I literally feel sick. When I look at that debt, I feel sick. It churns my stomach. I feel so stressed when I look at that credit card debt. That would be a really simple round. But if you were working with me, say one-on-one, let's start to work on what's the shame. What's the shame around that?
That would be a big one, because shame is the lowest vibration of the lot, isn't it?
Yes.
The mask we wear to hide behind. And it really is, what do they call it? When people have that feeling of low self-worth, they wear the mask to hide behind. But really, in behind that, they feel that they're not enough.
Correct. So when we do the tapping, we start to look at and as a shame around money is massive.
Yeah.
I should be doing better. Why aren't I doing better? What would happen if people found out how bad I was doing? All those sorts of shoulds and coulds all come in, but they all sit behind shame. So for us to do tapping, I'm looking at my credit card statement, all this shame. Okay. I'm feeling all this shame, all of this shame. And you may just do 1 or 2 rounds with just that one word, all of this shame.
Yeah.
All the shame around my money. That then helps to take the intensity out of the neurology, takes intensity out of looking at that credit card statement. Yeah. So obviously it's not going to make it all disappear, but it's the thought process and the body reactions.
And it changes the energy then, which changes the magnetizing what you're bringing towards you. It changes your focus.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So if you're focused on, law of attraction, if you're focused on, I don't have enough
and not having enough money,
let me give you more of that, says the universe. Versus, I can handle this, this is fine, and I can process it, it's all good. Universe, go, we can give you more, all good then.
Yeah.
So
and what do you feel about positive manifestations or affirmations?
I love them, and I am into them, but I also know the importance of clearing the negative, because the negative's the conversation you're having in your head anyway.
It's right.
The thoughts you're having anyway.
Yeah.
So that's why tapping's very focused on negative. It's the thought you're having anyway.
Yeah.
So let's just process it, so you're not going to the cupboard to shove it down.
Fantastic.
You're not going to go and do something negative to yourself, because you don't want to feel this way.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's all about how you feel.
Yeah, I like that. That's true, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it takes it away from looking at something, from seeing it, from hearing it, or the auditory digital, like, hurry up, come on, I've got a bus to catch. And well, how long is this meeting going to last for? I've got something better to do. And our mind is constantly working, isn't it? And we're not present. So we're missing out on what's truly being said, we're not owning our part in it. And when we connect on a very deep level of what we're here for, we're going to receive even deeper healing and deeper learnings, aren't we?
Yeah, because so many of us don't know what we're here to do.
Well, yeah, what's your why? So what's your why? Why are you here?
Why am I here? I've often, when you talk about the dark night of the soul, the last couple of months from February, when my book published, to kind of July or September, I questioned, why am I here? I honestly questioned, what am I doing on this planet?
This is perfect timing to bring this in. There's a segue.
What am I doing?
That dark night of the soul and slaying the dragon.
What am I doing here on the planet?
And your book brought this to the surface. Why am I here?
I think my book was imposter syndrome.
Oh,
it became bestseller in 10 categories, the highest achievement that the publisher's ever had.
Wow.
Yesterday I actually won the Publishers Award for 2022 for the best book launch of the year. And it's a global company.
That's so exciting. I have to get a book. I still haven't got my copy.
Can we see it?
Yes, thank you. So thank God he's gone. There's a story behind that painting too, isn't there?
So yes, so this painting is artwork.
Can you hold it closer to the camera?
I have to take my blue thing
because
off.
we're getting the background into it. That's better.
That's better.
Yeah, hold it there. He's gone. Thank God he's gone.
And so that's
is that the divine? No, yeah, that we just keep getting the background.
So the painting, so the painting is. She's a piece of artwork by an artist called Tanya Leviz. She has a gallery in the Hunter Valley here in New South Wales. And she painted this painting for me a couple of years ago. I saw
absolutely on commission, or was it? Wow.
No, so she'd already painted it, and I saw a little version, and it was a lot of money, and I thought, I can't afford it. And I said to myself, when I get to 6 figures, 100 grand in turnover in my business, I'm having that painting.
Good.
So about 6 months later, the business hit $100,000.
Wow, fantastic. Celebration time.
I did. I rang her and I said, that painting? I said, I'm having it. She goes, really? I go, yep. So then it got hand embellished, and it hangs on my wall. So it's about 2 meters by 3 meters. It's a substantial piece of artwork. Good. When I was writing my book, my brother-in-law goes, she's your front cover.
Yeah. So
I asked the artist.
I can't imagine anything else going on.
Neither can I. Neither can I now. It's just so perfect. But I do want to stress that it's not a man-bashing book. Men get a bit confronted by the title, but had I thought men would read a personal development book after a separation, it would say, thank God they've gone.
Yeah.
But our beautiful men counterparts don't. So it says, thank God he's gone. It's a personal development, personal empowerment book for women, about women. Let's claim our confidence back. Let's be
it's grateful. Reclaiming our own sovereignty, isn't it? And our own personal power.
And be grateful that it's done, because it wasn't serving you either. But
it's also part of our journey.
Yes.
And we wouldn't be who we are today if we hadn't gone through that, the initiation journeys. If we didn't question the status quo, if we just accepted it because it was our lot, we would be like a lot of people out there.
Yeah.
But people are now beginning to awaken, and they're starting to question, and they're starting to feel, well, there are other modalities and other tools or other people out there that have negotiated this. And that's what this Slaying the Dragon podcast is truly about. It's owning our own stuff.
Yeah, because I did. After the book, it was beautiful. It got to about the April and things just started to feel really unstable under my feet. And I questioned everything. Do I still want to stay alive? What am I here on this planet for? My kids have all moved out. They've all settled into their lives. I now know they're not coming back.
So the empty nest syndrome is a big issue for a lot of women as well. I know a lot of men go through it, but women being the nurturer and very much, and especially a single mother like you as well.
Yeah, so they were all gone. What do I want to do with my business? Do I want to keep it? Do I want to sell it? Do I want to trash it? Do I want to shut it? Do I actually want to keep doing it? What does it bring me?
Yeah.
And then got to, do I still want to stay alive? Do I actually still want to stay on this planet? Why am I here? And what do I want to stay on this planet for? And they were questions that sort of was May, June, July. By August, I had moved out of the house. I only own 10 pieces of furniture in my whole life and 40 boxes. They're not even big shipping boxes. Some of them are shoe boxes. I got rid of so much to just go clear everything away. How much do I need? I don't need this. So my primary thing for my life is freedom.
Decluttering.
Where is my freedom? Where can I go? How can I travel? How can I feel totally unencumbered?
Wow. Fantastic.
That's why I have a completely online business.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know where the next adventure is. I don't know where I'm going to live next. I don't know.
And you don't need to know.
Don't need to know. But my why for me is very much based on helping other people to get where they're going, i.e. my school. And for me, freedom. I have 4 values in life, and they are freedom, determined, playful, and passionate.
I love that.
And if things are not hitting those goals, if I'm doing stuff, being with someone, doing things in my life, and it's not hitting those 4, I get pretty disinterested and bored fairly quickly and tend to not want to do it anymore, and I'm out. Yeah, so that was my biggest dark night, was this year of, I don't know what I'm doing here. Now I do.
Why do you think it came up this year? This year's been a big year for a lot of people. Why do you think it came up this year for you?
I think it was the end of COVID, coming out of COVID. I said the book came out. There was a lot of imposter syndrome for me. It was hugely successful. So it was like, well, who do you think you are? Then, as you said, I gave up my job. So there that went the stability of my income, and things just started to unravel. Okay. And the only way I can explain it is nothing felt stable under my feet. Nothing felt stable. I was in a relationship. If anyone who's read the book, well, there is a man referred to in the book. The relationship with him has become unstable and has since ended. So all of that become unstable. My career, I've always been a corporate girl all my life. Suddenly I'm not. Suddenly I'm self-employed. I'm single. I've got to pay a mortgage, like everything.
And if you don't do your own work, you don't have income coming into the house. So this is a big energy to hold. And how long have you now had the Australian Tapping Institute as your business without any other income coming into it?
Only this year.
Wow.
Yeah, until then I ran a corporate job, and so I built it from its bare bones up while I worked.
And how long ago
and then I went to part-time
that you started?
2016, I registered the business. 2018, I started the hybrid online and face-to-face training. By 2019, we were 100% online, and we know what happened to 2020. Yeah, every other school on the planet shut down except for mine.
Fantastic.
Because I already had an online platform that's functional, works. Yeah, we don't do Zoom room for 3 days. We literally do. Every 2 or 3 times a month we come together and we do coaching and training, and there's all the pre-recorded content. There's hundreds of hours of library. I think it's a really great product. The students love it because it's on demand. There's an app they can listen to it on. It's so user-friendly for them.
You almost need to do some workshops on teaching people how to run that as a model as well. Like
I created a course on it.
Into that would be great.
I've created a course on how to create your online courses.
I think that would be fabulous.
I'm a master at creating online courses.
You've made the mistakes, and that's the best way of learning, isn't it? What do they say? Failure is our best friend, because if it doesn't fall apart, we don't know what's not working for us to be able to bring towards us what it is that we know we need.
Yeah, and most people in business need to have an online course, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You need to have something, whether it's something you send your clients to that they use as well as you, or some sort of passive income that's on the internet that gets you out there. I believe we all need some sort of online course. I just happen to know how to do it really, 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 really well. And I'm a geek to boot. So
and
I
that's
love
great.
doing all that stuff.
Yeah, but that's great.
Mm.
So how do you video? Do you video your workshops as you're doing it, or do you set up the camera yourself in the corner, or how do you do that?
So here's my course.
Or is this part of your training?
No, I'm happy to share my EFT training program. So it's an advanced practitioner of EFT and life coaching. It's $5,000. I did it with a microphone, an iPad, a tripod, and a teleprompter app.
So there's simple tools that anyone can use. You don't need anything fancy. And if anyone was going to come and learn how to do this from you, do you do workshops, or is there an online training for you to show people?
Online, there's complete online training. The online training is so comprehensive. It shows you everything step by step by step, like 5-minute videos, 7-minute videos, all the handouts, all of everything, how to create and sell your online course and how to get it out there. I teach you how to do the marketing of it, how to do the sales sequencing, how to do the email sequencing. Teach them all that, because they're all the things I needed to know, and I had to go and find out. And I paid thousands of dollars to find it all out.
Yeah, and many sleepless nights and a lot of stress. Questioning for what purpose.
Figuring it all out.
Yeah,
but people do. They think they need all this equipment. They don't, literally. And I shared with you before. I've got this great little picture behind me.
The ATI. That's
right.
The
ATI.
Yeah.
In my home, it's actually a banner backdrop that sits behind on a wall.
Can I get you to actually remove that banner backdrop? I know this is putting you on the spot, and I shouldn't do this, but it would be great. Yeah. So this is your real life. This is your lounge room, and
this is my lounge room.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's just about the same as if you put one of those up or whatever. Mine just happens
I think
to be.
That's exciting, because you've created a whole new space. And you could be anywhere. You could be in a caravan. You could be down at the beach. You could be on.
I know.
And no one needs to know where you are.
I know. What do you think?
There's power in that. You really do love freedom, don't you?
Love freedom.
The power to play and be passionate about your life and have freedom to choose what you want in your life. They're powerful values.
Totally. So to create an online course is just, it's simple. Good camera, tripod.
I want you to put a link on the courses that you're doing at the end of this.
Sure,
email that to me, and we can have this as a link. If anybody has any questions, because often these chats stir up a lot of questions, and that's what this is about: keeping it raw, keeping it real, and wild. And you're bringing that to the table beautifully. So thank you so
You and
much.
I always do when we hang out.
Exactly. But I love that, because we're human, living a human life, living our life through the wounds that we have already traversed. And, and just because we are now healers doesn't stop those challenges from happening. And we have to keep on top of our own life and keep moving forward. And I guess that's the entrepreneurial, maybe that's our survivor mechanism that's got us to where we are. But instead of surviving, we're now thriving to be able to own our story. And you own your story. You've published it. You're here on my vidcast. And see, even when I remember talking to you about having my first podcast and what equipment do I need and how do I do it? And it just sort of like happened where I did it thinking I really like the Zoom platform because it means that we're real, we're here in our own space, and people can connect, I think, more with that than just a voice and listening to just a chat. They can listen to it while they're doing it, but they can also be engaged in watching us as well. And I think I've maybe because I'm such a visual person, I felt like I needed to see what I need to see to be able to get that feeling activated, I suppose, and I think we need to work on lots of different platforms at the same time. And I guess as an ex-teacher myself, this platform fell together for me better. And I guess, I've started and I'm building the plane on the way down. Really, I've taken the leap off the cliff and,
Best way.
flying free. And I think the journey is an exciting journey, because I really want to show people the passion of their own soul calling. And I think to ask the question, what is my why? And stay with that question, because with the initiation journey, we get challenged so often we want to give it up. And for you to have the imposter syndrome only this year after you've left your full-time employment, your books come out. For most people, they would have all thought that Lorna's got it together, but here you are questioning your why.
Questioning my whole life, and do I even want to live?
And I think
I was never suicidal.
So how did you navigate through that this year? You know, because
lots and lots and lots and lots of journaling,
is that another book coming through?
I thought my book would be a business book, actually, but a friend that I'm no longer seeing, he's been recommending what the second book should be. He thinks it should be another relationship book. So I don't know what the next book is, but it's certainly coming. When I scoped this book that I had put out, I scoped it from she's separated from her partner to she's in a new relationship, and they moved in together, and they've got a blended family. And I went, that is too long, Lorna. Nobody's going to read that book.
That's boring as well. It doesn't have your values aligned to it with passion and freedom.
It wasn't. I mean, mine was 2013.
It's not aligned. I can feel already it's not aligned.
It was already too big as well. Yeah. No woman's going to read a book about, I've just split up with him and now I'm moving with him.
But it sounds like a quick fix to get happiness from outside of you as well. And that sounds like a bit of a trap.
And it never ever got its legs. I said that was 2013. It never got legs until 2021, and it was complete. It's very, very, very different to what it started as. Very different. But I needed to heal me, and a lot of that book was healing me. And I was dating a man while I was writing it, and he was just trigger after trigger after trigger, which was perfect, because I go, right, how am I handling this now? Great. I haven't got out my sword, my metaphoric sword.
I can see a movie being made out of this book. Have you even thought of that?
No.
Well, it'd be interesting to see how it plays out, especially with the cover of the book. And, you know, who would you choose to play the lead actor in this movie if you were to have a choice?
The lead actor?
Who would you choose to be the lead actor if you know, who's your favourite actress?
My favourite actress? Oh, goodness, I have no idea.
It's got to be an actress. If you can't play the role of you, who would you choose to play the role of Lorna Hollinger?
Oh, see, Julia Roberts comes into my head. I don't know why, but Julia Roberts came in. I have no idea. I literally, Elizabeth, have not ever thought of it being anything other than
so what are the qualities that you really admire about Julia Roberts?
Do you know what? It's the hair. The book has a red head on it.
Don't put the book up, because it gets morphed into your background and it shows. But that's a good thing. It shows. And I guess we're just living in a time capsule anyway, where time and space is just an illusion. And what you've done is given us a perfect example of that. It's like, wow.
I never even thought about it becoming a book.
Okay, so what are the other qualities that you like about Lorna, about Lorna Hollinger, about Julia Roberts playing the role of Lorna Hollinger in your movie?
I think she has a realness to her. She has a nice innocence to her, but she's not so much of a pushover. I'm just sort of picturing her in different roles that she's been in. I think I'm seeing a bit of Eat, Pray, Love, but this book is definitely not Eat, Pray, Love on any real level. But I don't know.
Are you seeing Richard Gere to be the supporting actor? Who's the young? Would you choose a younger version, or is Richard Gere still holding it up for you?
Oh, I think Richard Gere's gotten better with age, quite frankly. I didn't really like him in Officer and a Gentleman. I didn't think much of him, but these days I think he's matured very nicely.
I like a good bottle of wine. Red wine. Thank you, Richard. I hope, you never know, he might be seeing this one day, or Julia Roberts might see this one day. Julia Roberts has always been the actress I would have to play me as well. I feel like she's raw, wild and real, you know, she's approachable and authentic and gutsy, and you know, she gets into all of the roles and owns it 100%, and her naturalness, I think, is what I like. Her funkiness, like she can just just walk in and just do it her way.
Yep, absolutely.
I think we all need to take roles out of the qualities of the people we like and use those as modeling, because when we model ourselves against people and the qualities that we admire, we can start to bring those energies towards us. And I think that's that is a very powerful empowerment technique, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially if we feel that we haven't got the confidence to step into our own power, we can pretend or imagine, because our imagination, our unconscious mind can't discern the difference between what's real and what's not real.
Correct.
And so why children are so successful in bringing it through play and imagination, they can create a whole new world. And so when we take on those positive techniques, our world can change so rapidly.
So can.
I'm so excited to be chatting with you today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely wonderful. It's been such a long time since I've seen you as well. So it's such a treat to hang out.
Absolutely. And we will catch up one-on-one and sometime soon. And
absolutely
maybe have that time and have a glass of red wine together, or a glass of bubbles, or a cup of tea.
Cup of tea.
Lovely catching up with you. If you were to give any advice before we go with tapping as we're coming up to the Christmas time, which can be a highly stressful time where people can go into overwhelm, even with all of the people trying to find parking or shopping, feeling that they have to buy things that they can't afford, and with interest rates going up and fuel going up, and the shopping bill is more expensive, but everyone is feeling more materialistic about it as well. What's your advice and guidance? What would you suggest that they do to help get through this time and then celebrate Christmas? And, because not everybody is with a family of support like you, what's your coping mechanism, and what would you advise people watching this today?
So interestingly, I'm not spending Christmas with my family.
Your tribe, you're choosing
my sister's gone off here and my brother's gone off there, and we're going to meet up in January together. Look, I tell people, whoever I work with, the easiest thing to do is just flat hand here and just breathe. Whatever you've got going on that's overwhelming, I could give you 500 tapping scripts, and just breathe here. It's going to get the meridians of the collarbone. You're driving in, you haven't got a parking spot, just breathe and tap. And all that's going to do is it's just going to take the intensity, edge, and the stress out of what you're thinking right this minute. You don't have to think and talk about anything, but just do that. And I did a video the other day, and it was on the triggers and trauma of going into family events, knowing that auntie so-and-so is going to say something, and mum's going to whatever, and
that's what I'm referring to.
Lick you up and down, and all.
It puts a lot of pressure on a lot of people this time of the year.
I used to say Christmas was a day when you spent lots of time with people you don't really like.
Exactly.
So that's the thing. So take yourself away and just breathe. And just remember, it's their words.
And should they keep their eyes open or closed?
Doesn't matter, whichever they want to do on their own. But just remember, that person's words, they aren't real. They're made up. That person's opinion of you is made up. None of it's real.
I like that. That's
fantastic.
You're
grown up now. They can't hurt you. Who cares what they think of your body? They don't matter, because their words aren't real.
Fantastic. I like that.
Don't take the words on. But this will help you in the moment to not feel triggered by those words, not feel triggered by that look, not feel triggered by that snide comment.
This is wonderful that you're sharing this with us. So I value you doing this. This is a gift you're giving everybody. Thank you.
And people are forced to spend time with people who they haven't felt safe with. I mean, as I said, I work a lot with a charity. A lot of people having to spend time with people at Christmas who they have not felt safe with that person. Particularly in their own childhood, and they've still got to see those people. So,
well, I don't think we have to do anything we don't want to do. I think we need to have freedom to choose and own our own freedom to choose, and have our values aligned and our boundaries, and communicate what we choose to bring towards us, because we are in our own personal power. And I think the sooner we own our own personal power and own the awareness and accept the situation, we can't change other people, like you said.
Correct.
What they're saying or what they're thinking about us is not real. It's actually a representation of who they are, and it has nothing to do with us. I think
that'll probably be that one message. That one message to your people is, do the work.
Yeah.
Do your own work, because none of what you and I talk about, and you don't get there by doing your work.
Yeah.
And as you said, own it.
Own it.
Own it, own who you are, own where you're up to, own all of that. Your life will be better when you do, because everyone else's power over you disappears.
Yeah, 100%. I totally celebrate that. I value that.
Yeah.
That is so true.
Mm-hmm.
Trophy to you, baby.
Thank you.
Love chatting with you. I know
And
we'll
you,
get you
thank
back
you.
again, and it would be great,
You.
to stay in touch. And if people do want to message in and they've got a whole list of questions, then we may even get back together and answer them. You might,
absolutely,
if that happens. So
yeah,
it would be fabulous, and we'll put the links on the bottom of this. And
absolutely,
have a beautiful Christmas. And
you too,
I'm really
Elizabeth.
looking forward to catching up with you.
Bye.
All right. Thank
See
you.
ya.
Lots of love. Bye-bye. Bye-bye now. Bye.